Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Maker's Bar. We are on a mission to create and raise 1 million leaders. Special guest today is Venkat Avasarala, the managing principal, Stryker Properties. Venkat, thank you so much for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me, Rob.
So, how are you doing? How's your day going?
Doing pretty good. Been a busy day. Just relaxing a bit.
Where are you located at right now?
I'm in Plano, Texas. It's a suburb of Dallas. Just north of Dallas.
That's where the Toyota headquarters is.
That's right.
Yeah.
Plano, Texas. Yep.
I'd like to get a job there. Huh? All right. So let's jump right into this. Tell me about your early career and how you got to doing what you are doing.
So right now, what I do for the most part is I build apartments, commercial real estate. For the most part, it's apartments, Class A apartments in Sunbelt, basically DFW, Austin, and eventually maybe in Phoenix too. So it's been a long journey. You know, I came to the United States originally from India back in 2002 to pursue my master's in electrical engineering. So I did that. Couldn't land a job in electrical engineering because all the entry-level jobs left the country. I came into the country and the jobs left the country and I was in pickle. So I ended up in IT. IT had this insatiable demand even till today, right? I mean, it's just great. It's a great industry and keeps absorbing people. So I ended up in IT, worked 14 years in IT for several Fortune 500 companies. And around 2016 is when I started my commercial real estate journey. And I just started it as a side gig. At the time, I was working for a bank in IT department, though, but at a bank, when you work at a large bank, you have your hours 9 to 5, but your nights and weekends are yours. So suddenly I find that, okay, I got to do something with it. So started my commercial real estate journey by buying some apartments, existing ones at the time. And then amassed a portfolio, sold it. And now what I do is I build apartments now. So yeah, that's pretty much my journey.
Sounds like a good journey. That's kind of what I do. I work during the day doing the job that pays the bills.
That's right.
And then I get to do what I love later in the evening.
Absolutely.
So what does your company do and what are your main product lines? You already kind of answered that, right? You build apartment buildings?
But I would like to expand on that, right? So, so as you know, there is a housing crisis in the country, right? Housing is expensive. Part of the American dream was people will eventually buy a home and all that. Well, that part of the American dream is fading away. You can still have 2 cars, a wife and a dog and all that. But the house part is fading away. It's becoming very expensive. So that makes the rentals all more important, right? And what I do is I build Class A apartments. Now, when I say Class A, what I meant is these are the nice stuff. In Texas, the rents start around $1,500 and go all the way to $2,000, $2,100, something like that, right? So that's the range. Who are these people? These are the people who make about $80,000 to $120,000. It's great money. Right. However, with the way the housing prices have exploded in all the major metros of United States, it's hard for people to come up with the 20% of a $900,000 house or a $600,000 house. So what happens is these guys ended up renting. And it's not all sad story also, right? A lot of young people, millennials, they're in no hurry to get married or have children or buy a home, nothing. They're just taking their time and chilling out. So these Class A apartments, these are people who make good money, not in a hurry to buy a home. And they're doing well in life every passing year. So they make more money next year than this year. So those are the people I would like to cater to at the moment. And with these, my Class A properties. And these are usually in a nice affluent location. So that is my main product that we do.
What are the significant challenges that you faced in the initial stages of your business and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, the knowledge, right? So there is no university for it. I mean, of course, there are universities, courses, they'll tell you this and that about real estate. But once you come into the market, I mean, not a whole lot that you learn in university is actionable, meaning you cannot just start working on the deals, right? So that was quite a bit, right? So what I did was I networked with people. I found somebody that I admire. Like, one day I want to be like that guy or that girl, right? So, and then I went and introduced myself, shared my vision, and got a got to hitch a ride on one of their deals, convinced them to take me in as a junior partner, did all the work for a small compensation. And that's how you learn the ropes, right, in this business. And as you do that, I mean, you get introduced to so many service providers. Basically, you get to see how the sausage is made. And when you are in a pickle, you know who to call, right? Who Somebody already been through what I'm going through right now, right? So this is when you make that call, and they will give you that advice, timely advice, so that you can solve the problem, go to the next one, right? So yeah, it's been quite a bit of journey. Knowledge has been an issue. Took a couple of years to get my bearing. Start around 2014. By 2016, I was able to get enough knowledge and land a deal all by myself. So it's quite a journey. And after that, it's basically winning the trust of the brokers, right? At the end of the day, I'm in commercial real estate, so we're talking about buying or building anywhere between 5 million to $100 million per project, right? So when you do something like this, smaller, it gets easier, but then again, too much competition, right? I mean, there's so many people who are to buy a 5 million property than a 60 million or 80 million property, right? So I started with my very first property was 3.5 million back in 2016, and I worked my way up, and now my typical project is about 80 to $100 million each. So it's been quite a journey. Equity, debt, relations, all things being equal, why should a broker sell the deal to you? Why should he tell the seller that, okay, sell it to Venkat and not that guy, but just to sell to Venkat? So that's the relationship building, right? I wouldn't call it like hurdles and all that, but something which just need to get done. I call them more like a preconditions than hurdles.
So, what has been your most satisfying moment in business so far?
So I would say that, transitioning from my IT to buying apartments, and now from there to building apartments, I'm able to stay one step about ahead of the market. And I say this because at the onset of COVID, I was holding 3,500 units. It's about $350 million in portfolio, about $60 million in investors equity. And then COVID came out, and then suddenly the government said that you cannot evict for people for non-payment of rent, and then people are asked to stay at home, losing their livelihood and all that. And most people got help, but it was like throwing a big monkey wrench in this whole thing, right? I mean, life was very good until COVID, and suddenly it got destabilized, and we couldn't sleep and all that. But then again, they made right by us. They paid all the back rent, the government. And then I waited for a time, and then September 2021, I kind of liquidated all my portfolio against the grain. So that is when people are stepping over each other, trying to buy the stuff that I'm selling. And I got some angry emails from investors like, what the hell are you doing? Do you know what you're doing? You got to be buying more. Why are you selling? So my thought process was that in Texas, our property taxes, property insurance, everything was going through the roof. And these older properties they're getting very expensive to maintain because the older crowd retired. Now the new crop comes in, and they will not work hard that hard, or for that money that their grandfather or father would work, right? So so if you want to get something fixed, something used to be $100, well, now it's $300, right? I mean, huge inflation in the service sector. So I saw the writing on the wall, and I didn't care, know that nobody agreed with me, but I went ahead and sold, did really well. And then the struggle started, right? I mean, March 2022 is when they started raising interest rates and make things which are hard even harder. And then now there are foreclosures in Houston, San Antonio, not so many in Dallas, but Houston and San Antonio, I mean, it's pretty rough. And I could have been one of the statistic had I not done what I did. So I take this immense satisfaction that, look, my heart goes out for the people who are suffering right now because of this higher interest rates, foreclosures, and all that. But I was able to keep my investors' equity safe, and that just gives me so much immense satisfaction because it's not like God appeared in front of me and told me what I did, right? I mean that comes from from diligence and paying attention to what's happening and thinking with your head than with your heart. So
Yeah, that's crazy that you sold it all and it worked out great.
yeah,
So they thought you were crazy,
yeah.
but it ended up working out good for you.
Absolutely, because at that time, I mean, the interest rates were so low, like 3.5%. It's a floating rate loan, but it's 3.5%. And to make it worse, our Federal Reserve Chairman Gerald J. Powell and even President Biden came out and said that, hey, don't worry about inflation. I mean, I have videos of that, them saying that, don't pay attention to it, and nobody cares about it. It comes this way, it'll go away tomorrow. It's supply chain disruptions. Don't worry about it. And then they changed the tune in 3 months out and completely said that no, inflation is not transitory. It is here to stay, and they start jacking the interest rates and all that. So yeah, I mean, if you think about it, we dodged huge bullet there by not listening to them.
Yeah. So, what are your key values that your company represents, and how do you ensure that they're upheld?
So what we do is, again, our model is basically, let's say we build $100 million apartment complex, right? So we bring loans up to, let's say, 80% of the cost, and once we build it, the idea is we don't take up the project if there's not enough 25% margin at least on the back end, right? So if you build something for 100 million, it has to be worth 125. Then we pick it up. So we're bringing in 80% of the debt, and the remaining 20% we raise equity from high net worth individuals. Basically, most of my because I was from IT background, most of my investors are IT people, so they relate well with me. About 2/3 of them, and a third of them are in medicine, pharmacies, and all that, right? Business owners and all that, doctors and stuff. So these are the people who are very hardworking people who do well in life, have savings to invest, just don't have time. They most of these people do stocks, but that's as far as they go when it comes to investing, right? So the very first thing I try to do is be straight with them, right? On not sell pie in the sky kind of thing, but kind of create an awareness on why one should invest. Because what's happening is the money supply in this country has gone crazy. Like in 2001, at the onset of 9/11, our money supply, the amount of all the money combined in this country was like about $4 trillion. It took 250 years since independence to build up to 4 trillion. Well, fast forward 2024, roughly around 23 years. It's 5x right now. It's 22 trillion, and now they pulled a trillion off. So we are about 21 trillion. So money supply got 5x in just 24 years. And the first 4 million took 250 plus years. Just imagine that. So 9/11, because every economics textbook says that if you print too much money, there will be inflation, right? I mean, that's why people are afraid of printing money, and it was good. President Clinton gave us the balanced budget in late 90s, right? So all is good. And when 9/11 happened, it's a matter of national security. So you got to print money so we can go do those wars, right? And people expected inflation, but there was no inflation for some reason. And then 2008 rolled around, and then rolled in, and again we had to print money to rescue everybody, right? Again, there's no inflation. And we were like, really? So we can print money and not pay for it? I mean, there's no inflation. And then COVID came along, and then we printed a lot more money. And this time, the third time is the charm, right? So now we have this raging inflation, right? So what this did all this while is we had inflation, but not in milk and eggs and gadgets. They
Yeah.
were all deflationary because thanks to China, globalization, automation, outsourcing. So all these things came down in the value. So we thought there was no inflation, but all along we had inflation. But that inflation was in assets. The stock prices went through the roof, and the Bitcoin used to be like 10 cents, is like 70 grand right now, right? How did
Wow.
that happen without this money supply, right? So homes, which used to be $150,000, very nice home in the state of Texas, is like $500,000 at least. How did that happen, right? It's all
Hmm.
money supply. So a lot many don't pay attention to that, and I create this awareness in my investors that look, you don't have to invest with me, but you gotta invest. Otherwise, your purchasing power is going down. Everything that you care about in life, good education for your kids, medicine, a good house, maybe taking a vacation, eating outside, everything is getting expensive. If you leave your money in a Bank of America checking account, guess what? You're becoming poor every single day in your sleep, right? So that's one of the thing, right? The transparency and creating awareness, education to the investors. And if they want to invest with us, like we've been we be very transparent, very approachable, because that is what an investor cares about, right? Look, I don't know what I don't know. How do I know this is right for me, right? And when somebody's in that kind of confusion, the easiest way to sell them is like, smokes and mirrors, and take the check and invest whatever, and hope whatever. But what I do is like I create that awareness education in them so that they themselves reach out to me, kind of thing. That's value. I don't like hard sales and all that. And the second thing that we do is like transparency, right? Again, it's business at the end of the day. This is not FDIC. Like somebody invests with me, I don't give them an FDIC certificate, right? I'm not US Treasury that I can print dollars in return if something happens, right? So that's another thing, right? I provide a lot of transparency to them, that like what they're getting into. I mean, it's nothing crazier than stocks, right? I mean, it's a lot better than better risk profile than stocks, but this is risky. You are building something, and now you have to lease it up, and you have to sell it, and there's no guarantee that when we are selling, things will be better, right? So transparency would be my other value. So these are the thing. Creating education awareness is one of thing, and another one is transparency, and give them a nice experience.
Nice. How do you define success for yourself and for your business?
I would say that, if I can, again, going back to what I just said, right? Again, there are so many families who make six figures and still live paycheck to paycheck in this country. And the reason for that is like, again, the top 1% or 2% or 3%, they know what to do. They exactly know what to do. They invest in assets, and in their sleep, they get rich. But the rest of the crowd doesn't have any financial acumen. They just don't know what they don't know, and they fear they don't know what they don't know, right? So my success would be defined in helping people, again, whether to invest with me or not. I want them to do well. I want them to be on the other side, right? With along with the 1%. I mean, it's not like, investing with me or by themselves, they'll becoming 1%, top 1%. But we have to emulate, we have to see, learn, and emulate what the 1% is doing. That's the least we can do for ourselves, right? And then
Yeah.
again, there's no university, there's no course to teach all that. So it falls upon people like me who are a little bit more enlightened, because this is my day job, right? So this is the
Yeah.
day job, and I need to have that knowledge, clarity. So my success would be like to help 1,000 people, 1,000 people, at least 1,000 families, to create awareness, education, make them better investors, and hopefully they'll invest with me. So that is definitely value. And as a company, right? So again, like what happened with my transition from this older property, selling them right on time, moving to Class A apartments, I really think that is one of the successful measure, because there's just so many companies. I'm not talking about these companies which were set up a year or two ago. I'm talking about companies which have been in business in 20 years, 30 years. They're losing properties right now, right? It's depressing, right? So I would define the success at my company level is like to keep my track record and just help people, don't lose anybody's money, and be very transparent. Bad news or good news, be very transparent, straight with them, and don't put a big layer of people between you and your investor, right? They should be able to call you, text you, or set up a call with you. That I think is how I would define success.
Yeah. So, how do you handle adversity and doubt?
Well, um, adversity, right? So one thing is like, usually that is associated with risk, right?
Yeah.
So there are several parts to that, right? So first you have to identify the risk, and then whatever you can identify, you can put together some contingencies for them, right? But then again, there's no way we can think of everything. So, and that is when the adversity comes, right? This is something that you have never thought would happen, but suddenly happened. You don't have a contingency measure and all that, right? So this is why you need your network. And I'm not just talking about just friends, but you know I usually bring in a partner who is, who has at least 20, 30 years. Let's say I'm partnering with somebody to build car washes. I never built a car wash in my entire life, right? But I can figure it out. But I'm not just gonna go in there alone, right? So I'm gonna go with somebody who's been in 20 years in that industry, minimum 20 years. The idea behind that is all the adversaries which already happened, probably he faced it, so he would know what to do when that
Oh,
plays
yeah.
out again, right? And that way, that is how I mitigate the risk, that I don't know what it is yet. But I'm sure there are risks out there. But so that's why, I partner with, you know, people and also maintain a good network of vendors and advisors so that I can lean upon them, because nothing is impossible to solve. It's just like a timely action, timely advice. 99% of these can be mitigated, whatever comes our way.
Can you share a failure that later became a success or like a valuable lesson?
Um, what I would say is like, when I was pivoting from class B and C, that is what we call these older properties built in 60s, 70s, 80s, right? So it was good, but like I said, during COVID, I got my teeth kicked in. I mean, all hell breaks loose, right? People like there's 20% drop in collections. People are sitting home, bored, fighting with each other. Buildings going up in flame. I don't know why that happens, but several buildings got burned down to the crisp. And crime, gun violence, drugs, all these things happening, right? So basically, I thought I messed up, right? I totally messed up. I felt like I'm losing control. But, later, like I said, right? So I was able to hold it. You do need nerves of steel in order to live through something like COVID when you're handling so much money for other people and under so much risk, right? Not saying that we didn't get help from the government, we did, but eventually, but there was so many sleepless nights. So at that point, I thought that I messed up. I really messed up. I didn't know what I was doing. I had no business in handling anybody's money. I mean, right? I mean, that is the doubt constantly. Am I doing the right thing? Because there's no precedence. When is the last time we had a pandemic where the whole world gets shut down 90 days? When is it? Not in last
Never.
1,000 years. Maybe Spanish flu or something like that, right? Maybe way back when. So there's no precedence to that. So it gives you a doubt and always makes you question what you're thinking. So that I thought was failure. And then we did okay. We not only did okay, we made quite a bit of money. We waited long enough to get the market to come back and got out of it. And then another thing is like, when these class A properties, I burned 6 months chasing class A properties to buy them. So because at the time I didn't know how to build these, it's like, okay, let's go buy them. Then I find myself that, competing with big boys now. I'm talking about BlackRock, Goldman Sachs. I mean, these are the people, insurance companies, pension funds. These are the companies who buy these class A properties. Right? I mean, somebody with deep pockets who can overpay and sleep and doesn't even think twice about it. So wasted 6 months, and I kind of felt like failure. Look, I don't want to go back to BNC, the kind of stuff I sold. I don't want to buy them again. And nobody would like give me a class A property in a decent price where me and my investor can make $1, right? So
Yeah.
felt like failure, but that is when, right? I mean, that learning actually forced me to go figure out how to build. It forced me. I felt like failure. 6 months went by, nothing to show for it. But that burning desire to own class A properties, right? So it kind of forced me to go learn everything, to go network, to find the partner who knows to build apartments, put together a team, raise money, find best sites in Collin County and Denton County, in very affluent counties, right?
Yeah.
Even 5 years back, if you had told me that one day I will own a property in these counties, I would have never believed you. What? I would own $100 million property, $80 million property. Yes, with investors, but still, me at the driver's seat, right? I would have never believed you, right? So that failure of inability to buy a class A property on market kind of forced me to learn ground up construction. And I have 2,000 units in pipeline. Actually, one of my properties very close to you, Rob. It's in Kyle, right,
Yeah.
right on Highway 35.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's called Opal at Kyle. So that's the property which we are finishing up. Very nice property.
That's a pretty nice area over there. So, how do you foster innovation and creativity within your organization?
So real estate, right? I mean, for ages there was no innovation, there was no creativity in this industry. This is like, this is how I have always done, right? So now actually the people are turning quite a bit, right? The older people, like anybody who's in real estate in the 60s, one metric, right? So about 6 million people took early retirement when stock market peaked in 2021. right? I mean, I'm talking about architects, I'm talking civil engineers, I'm talking about IT people, anybody and everybody who had some decent money in stock market suddenly got doubled, and they said that, look, life is short. We don't know whether we're going to live or die. Let's cash in our check and go sit at the beach, right? That's what happened, right? So
Yeah.
that caused so many people to turn in each of these industries. Recently, the rideshare company Lyft, they gave earnings and they put a decimal point onto the right, one digit right. What that means is, let's say if your income you made is 500,000, or let's say 5 million, they went ahead and said we made 50 million, right? I mean, that's what happened in the real publicly traded company during quarterly results. That's what they did. And then they quickly came and corrected. And then there are four other companies which did the same exact thing, right? Map issues with the map for a public trading company, like never happened before. Not this many. Turns out the CPS retired, right? All the CPS retired, the experienced one, and the young crop is coming in, and they're just not quite up to the mark. So this is happening, but this gives you a great way for innovation, right? So for innovation to have a new mindset, and be creative on how we solve problems, right? So thank God AI landed. So I was just talking to a vendor today where we are looking to actually put an AI to field all our calls so that our property manager, the staff at the apartment complex spend more time solving problems, be available than spend in marketings, right? So picking up phone call, giving them all the information. The person on the other side have no idea that they're not talking to the real person. The technology has come to that level now, right?
Wow.
So we're jumping all over that. You're using that in marketing, content creation, lead generation, and lead follow up, all this good stuff, right? So this is how we keep up. And then also in the construction side, there are just so much innovation that is coming. Again, it just takes forever to design and get the property entitled and building, soliciting all the bids. So we are using some technology there. So I would say this innovation, again, nothing groundbreaking that you have seen yet. The real innovation would be when I figure out how can I build an apartment complex for half the cost, or at least like a good discount from what today a class A apartment, like a garden style where surface park, 300 unit complex, takes about $220,000 today to build it. About 5 years ago, the cost was about 120.
Hmm.
It went up from 120 to 200 in 5 years. That's how crazy it was, right? So again, if we don't figure out how we can build it at, let's say, 150, 140, the rents will keep going up, keep going up, keep going up, and it'll be a disaster, right? So that is what I would call a true innovation. I keep hearing about manufactured houses. I mean, Lego kind of houses where you make it somewhere else, panels you bring it to, but nobody's talking about cost savings. They said that, look, I can do it few months quicker compared to the
Mhm.
original, the regular standard construction, but I'm not going to save you any dollars. If you don't save me dollars, how can I charge less rent and show the true innovation? So that is the quest I'm actively looking for that, um, for that silver bullet, so to speak. There should be some technology which will allow me to build a good quality product which will stand for 50, 60 years, but
Yeah.
still I can do it for cheaper.
So you can make a less expensive building and charge the people that live there less.
There you go. Because your property stays full, you'll be able to attract and retain the best tenant. Because that's what happens if the price is not affordable. Maybe this tenant comes in and after 6 months they'll try to break the contract and go live somewhere else, and now I need to bring somebody else. But let's say if you're undercutting market by 20-25%, let's say rent is 2,000, but with me it's only 1,500, same quality product. Just think about it, right? So, and even governments, there's so many incentives. If you can do that, if you can beat the market by 20-25%, there are so many incentives that the government, both the federal government and state, and now you can go avail all those things. So the trick is to learn how to build cheaper. See, that's the innovation we are still waiting on, and I am actively seeking.
So what is the long-term vision for your company?
My vision would be to kind of diversify. Right now, we are at mainly, I would say 95%, we are apartments, multifamily. The vision would be to diversify, again, play in this North Dallas part. This is one of the hyper growth areas in the country, right? I mean, obviously, the region between Austin and San Antonio, that corridor, high growth corridor. And then we have
Yeah.
North Dallas, which is high growth corridor. And there is a corridor in Florida, Phoenix. So there are a few of them. So I'm already in Austin area and I'm already in Dallas. Phoenix is something I really desire, where I want my footprint very close to LA. Again, trying to solve a problem, right? I mean, it's so crazy up there in California, living expenses wise, right? And politics wise too. But Phoenix is a good 3 hour journey for them to just move from California to San Antonio, right? So, I meant Phoenix. So that is where I want to actually provide some housing, mixed use. So that's our vision, to actually do bigger projects, better projects, marquee projects, basically.
So the next question is, how do you approach risk in your business?
Yeah, so the risk is like, look, not many people actually have a like we have an Excel model, right? I mean, where it says, okay, these are the rents, these are the cost to build, this is how we project the rents, this is income, expenses, and all that. But I wish, there's a template for risks, right? I mean, so you got to build your own. There is no such thing as that. So again, I worked at Bank of America in IT, right? So the very good risk culture, right? So actually, I was never very cognizant about openly talking, identifying, documenting, mitigating risk until I joined bank. See, bank, insurance companies, it's all about risk management, right? For those. So they instill a very good risk culture in me. Meaning looking things ahead before they happen, right? I mean, that is what saved my bacon, right? When with those older properties, right?
Yeah.
You have to be able to see and think with your head again. Don't fall in love with the asset or a property or something like that. Always think with the head. So yeah, risks wise, right? I just sit around with my advisors, my vendors, and obviously my partner, who has significantly more experience than me. And then we lay out these plans, okay, being a devil's advocate and all that, right? And then we put contingency measures around them, right? Mitigation factors around them if that risk materializes. But like I said, right, I mean, still stuff happens, right? Still stuff happens. And then, like, for suppose, right, so when we were building this Kyle project, nobody told us that there was a tree ordinance. It was a very wooded lot that we bought, and we spent 6 months feeling good. We submitted everything. We were counting that, okay, we're going to get permits soon. Boom, they said that, look, there are tree ordinance that we just borrowed from city of Austin, so now you have to protect some of these trees. So go measure each tree in that 16-acre place, identify its species, measure the girth of each of the tree, and then here's the list of protected trees, and come up with a plan how you're going to protect them. So what that means, like, you got to change everything, right?
Yeah.
Because you didn't know. I mean, Kyle didn't have a tree ordinance when we acquired that land. Somewhere in those 2 3 months, 6 months, when we were working on the plans, they adopted a tree ordinance. It's not like they're going to phone me and tell me, right, that, oh, you know what, we have a tree ordinance now. So suddenly it jumps at you, right? Okay, now we have this risk, right? I mean, there might be a good big delay and all that, and it's still COVID days. So I think the Delta wave or something, which was coming at the time, like in mid 2021. So yeah, so that is when you lean upon your support system, your people with experience and all that, and we were able to minimize the delay, and we still broke ground by Thanksgiving that 2021. So I'm talking about this. These kind of things can be very detrimental. This is still okay. It creates delay, but it's not a showstopper. But there will be certain things like where they just stop you, right? You can't do anything. You cannot build anything there. Let me give you another example, right? So a friend of mine bought some 50 acres in one of the Austin towns, Pflugerville, I believe.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but one of those cities. And he saw a water pipe running through his pipe. Makes you think, yeah, I got water. That's literally water pipe is running through my land, and I gave them an easement. I mean, if it's not for me, who's going to get the water, right? So I acquired the land, and then when he tried to apply for permit or something, asking for that water, they said, no, 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 you will get your water in 15 years. It's like, what are you talking about? There's a water line running through my, oh, that water is spoken for, right? What you do with the land? You just sit there twiddling your thumbs for 15 years? it could be as serious, right? So that would never happen to me because I have a way to do these things, right? So I'm not, I won't shy away from spending money, right? So you have to hire all these civil engineers, architects, service providers, right? To as part of your due diligence. And after
Hmm.
due diligence, there is a good chance that you might say that, you know what, I no longer like this site. I found something in my due diligence. I'm done with this project. You give the land back. You never close on the contract, but you already spent 20, 30 grand. So be it. The alternative is even dangerous,
Yeah.
right? Like where you don't spend this money thinking that you will do it on the other side. Too late. You already own the land now, right? So that's the thing, having a good process, dependable people, and putting together all the identifiable risk and mitigation factors is how I would.
Can you describe your leadership style and how you cultivate your team culture?
I believe in in a leadership style where I let me put it this way: I want them to be leaders. I try to build the leaders. I don't like followers at all. Right? I want to give them, again, I shouldn't be doing that probably if I'm a rocket scientist trying to design rockets and all that, right?
Yeah.
But for what I do, right? I mean, we are building apartments, right? In this, you have to empower people, create confidence in them that they can do it, and pull them into things that they ought to be knowing 6 months out, exposing them a little bit right now, and just leave them to their own device. Hey, look, I'm just always a phone call away from me, but I know that you can figure this thing out. It does a couple of things. Obviously, it frees up my time. I can go do something more productive. And the second thing is, if a person, the joy that somebody derives by figuring out something complicated all by themselves, the kind of work satisfaction, the kind of confidence, the kind of feel good, like walking like you own the world kind of thing, you cannot replace that with money,
Yeah.
right? They would love the job and they'll move mountains for you. They're in good spirits. So that is my leadership style, right? So that is like I try to build leaders, um, you know, who works in my organization.
How has your business evolved since you first started? I know you already talked about how you had the B and C's and now you're doing the A's. Is there any other way it's evolved?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And I do a bit of land development. All it's all about doing projects which provide you that risk adjusted favorable return, right? So investors can always put in the US treasuries. Even US treasuries are paying like 4 to 5% right now, right? So why should they invest with me, right? So again, I try to create an opportunity which provided a good risk adjusted return to the investor, in addition to into that tax advantages, things that a stock cannot give. Because at the end of the day, stocks is a de facto. If somebody decides to invest, the first thing they would do is stocks. That's your
Hmm.
competition. Right? So your business better perform, right, and give a good alternative and good diversification option for your tenant. What that means is I cannot just sit there. I started out buying single families. That I did with my own money. I bought it from 2007 all the way until 2014, right? For 7 years, I bought homes for very cheap. They appreciated quite a bit. But if you don't evolve, if you don't get the pulse of the market and stay one step ahead,
Hmm.
it's hard to do that, right? So that is where the evolution has to come from, where I moved from single family to multifamily, and then from there to construction, and now I'm looking into car washes, the express car washes, land development. So yeah, I mean, again, my job is to provide investment opportunities for those busy professionals where I can provide a good risk adjusted returns for them compared to stock market.
Yeah. Those car washes are popping up everywhere where I live.
Yeah, yeah.
Can you tell me about a book or a mentor or maybe an event that significantly influenced your journey?
Yeah, I would say it's the book, right? So there is a book called how to how to make friends and influence people, right? So I've probably been butchering. It's been a while since I read that book. um how to Yeah. So that was written by Dale Carnegie back in 1920s. So basically all that book talks about, okay, how do you go about dealing with people, right? How do you make friends? How do you influence people, right? How do you make them want to work with you? I'm not talking about manipulation, CIA strategies, right? Not Chris Voss kind of stuff, right? This is like something that you would use with your mom, your wife, or your kid,
Mhm.
your business partner or something, right? How be a good person, right? Where people like you and want to do business with you, kind of thing, right? So that changed everything, right? I mean, the way you talk, small changes that you make, the way to write your emails, the small changes, how you try to keep yourself in the other shoes, and how do you acknowledge, let's say, you and I are going to have a small issue here, right? So we got to talk about it. But then again, how do you approach this situation, right? I mean, basically, the book talks about it like, don't criticize anybody. It's not going to help. Like
Mhm.
somebody who's ready to be executed for a capital with capital punishment, you stop that and say that, man, are you sorry that you did what you did? 99% of the time they say, no, I mean, I didn't do anything wrong, right? They're I mean, unfairly put. Nobody don't want to acknowledge what they did wrong for the most part, right? So you criticizing them is not going to help, right? It says that, but if you must criticize, do it this way, right? So it gives you so much actionable information that you can learn and employ in your day-to-day interactions with people. And that is what it's all about, business. Let's say Elon Musk is flying rockets to Mars or wherever. Tomorrow, if that becomes mainstream, guess what? I'm going to real estate and go do that business. I'm going to fly satellites and taking people's satellites and put it on my rocket and send them up, right? I mean, I will get into that. But how can I get into it without being rocket scientist if I know how to talk to the people?
Yeah.
I'm sure somebody knows how to fly rockets. It's just that they got to be on my team. That's all it is, right? So that's the kind of approach, right? I mean, that you can talk your way into any situation or out of any situation, or put together a team and run a good cohesive team. So I would say that book by Dale Carnegie, it influenced me quite a bit,
You
which
did
I
get the name
use
of
it
the book
today.
right.
Yeah.
I
I'm
looked it
sorry.
up while you were talking. You did get it right.
There you go.
So, what are the most critical skills you believe that an entrepreneur needs in order to succeed?
First thing is this, right? I mean, curiosity. Number one is curiosity, right? If you are not curious, if you think that, you know what, this is what I do, this is what I need, anything outside this, it's waste of time. I'd rather watch TV or something, right? I mean, it the more curious you are, the more opportunities that you would have. Let's say, imagine that you're walking in Alaska during Klondike days, where golden nuggets every day. If you're not curious before you go to Alaska, and if you don't know what to look for, how a gold bar looks for once it's all refined and poured into a slab, right? Into
Mm,
a biscuit. But if you don't know how to identify gold in the rough, the way they are, you can never find them, right? So you got to be curious, and you have to get the training, you have to have knowledge to learn. So when you walk in Klondike area, I mean, all you see is nuggets, right? Oh, you pick one, you pick one, you pick one, right? So that is how I see, right? So I have a very curious mind, like economics, geopolitics, obviously my field, real estate, finance, personal finance, what happens in people's life, like a C-class person, right? I mean, what, like somebody who makes $40,000, who lives in a C-class apartments, what happens in their life? You need to understand. If you don't understand your client, how can you serve them? I see so many people sign up to become sponsors or owners for these older properties in rough areas and all that. They have no idea how the people there live, what their
yeah.
challenges are, right? What their issues are. They don't know, right? So I would say that, I mean, nothing beats that. The curiosity is the one thing, and the second thing is like what we discussed, right? I mean, you should know how to work with people, man. People want to work with people they like,
Yeah.
even if they have a little bit of a skill set, they'll still work with you as long as they like you.
Yeah.
So likability is very important. Running a tight ship with your team is very important. So I would chalk that up to interpersonal skills. But the first one is curiosity and knowledge, and the second one is interpersonal skills.
All right. The final question we got for you today is, what advice would you give someone wanting to start their own company?
I would say start right away, right? Start right away, and don't look for easy stuff. All right. Let me put it this way. Today it's so easy to go buy a single family home, right? I mean, it's so easy just to buy on MLS. But if it's easy, everybody would do that, right? Everybody will do that. And if it's everybody, and if everybody can do it, there's no moat, right? That's why everybody can do it, right? And then the margin will be low. So now you have to buy 100 of them to move the needle. So go do hard stuff. Hard stuff has margin in them. Thank God that there are hard things to do. Like buying an apartment complex is much, much easier than me building one. But then again, margin is in building, right? Because there's a moat. Not everybody who wants to get into apartments can build one, right? So you teach yourself, you partner with somebody, you figure it out, and you go build that. So that is what I would say, right? Start the company early, have realistic targets, don't quit your day job. You need that capital. There's another line of thinking, like some young people are saying that, you know what, Elon Musk said that I don't need to go to college, right? I don't need college, right? uh like so I still encourage people to go to college and go get a job and everything, because the capital, right? Unless you have your folks are very wealthy and they give you big inheritance, most people start with nothing, right? I mean, a few $100s in their bank account is what they have. So you need capital to do something with it, right? So, and you can always raise capital, but who will give you capital when you have no resume, nothing that you have proved in your life, right? So your capital is your capital. That's what will get you started. So going to a job, a 9 to 5, will give you that discipline, makes you humble, right? You work for somebody, take orders from somebody. I'm not saying that you do it for your rest of your life, right? But it makes you humble, right? And working with other people, interpersonal skills developed, because that is one of the things I'm hearing from the managers who are hiring millennials, right? They're sharp, very sharp when it comes to computer skills and all that, but they don't know how to get along with other people.
Yeah.
That's an issue. And more importantly, capital formation, skill set, interpersonal skills, right? So that is what I'd say. Don't quit your day job. Work, I would say, arbitrarily making up 3 to 5 years. Work there while you hustle. And hustling is a great skill. The world doesn't revolve 9 to 5, right? I mean, people do outside 9 to 5. That is where you hustle, like what you and I are doing right now, right?
Yeah.
So you have to hustle. If you take easy choices right now, your later life will be hard, and vice versa. So pay your dues when you're young. That is what I would say.
All right. Well, that's it. Venkat, I appreciate you coming on and giving your time to us to share your story. It was a lot of great stuff. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks for having me, Rob. It was fun.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time on Maker's Bar.